My sister allowed her in-laws to stay at my house behind my back, claiming it was hers. But when she asked me to move out to please her mother-in-law, I had everyone pack their bags, and they begged me not to kick them out. My mother's call came on a Tuesday afternoon as I was preparing for another sales trip. I recognized her number and almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. "Tiffany, honey, how are you?" Mom's voice had that sweet tone she always used when she wanted something. "I'm fine, Mom, getting ready for a trip to Chicago tomorrow." "What's up?" I tucked the phone between my ear and shoulder as I continued folding clothes into my suitcase. "Well, I have some news. Your sister is back in town. She and Derek moved back from Arizona yesterday." I paused. Amber and I hadn't spoken much since Grandma Eleanor's will reading 4 years ago. "Oh, I thought her husband's business was doing really well out there. She always bragged about it during the holidays." Mom's voice lowered slightly. "Well, things didn't quite work out. Apparently, there were some issues with his business partners, and they decided it was best to come home and start over." "I see." I knew exactly where this conversation was going. "The thing is, honey, they're staying with us right now. But you know how small our place is. Your stepfather's knees are getting worse, and having them in the guest room means he has nowhere to do his physical therapy exercises." I closed my eyes and counted to 5. "Mom, are you asking what I think you're asking? Well, that house your grandma left you has 3 bedrooms, and you're all alone in that big place. It would just be temporary until they find jobs and get back on their feet." Grandma Eleanor's house. My sanctuary. The only place that was truly mine after a childhood of feeling like a guest in my own home. After Dad died when I was 5, Mom married Bert only 18 months later. Then Amber came along, and suddenly I was an afterthought. "How temporary is temporary?" I asked. "Oh, not long at all. A month or 2 tops. Derek already has some promising interviews lined up." I doubted that, but what could I say? Fine. They can stay in the blue bedroom, but only until they find their own place. After hanging up, I sat on the edge of my bed and let the memories wash over me. Amber was 6 years younger than me, Robert's biological daughter. From the moment she was born, she became the center of our family's universe. While Mom and Bert doted on her, I found refuge at Grandma Eleanor's house. Dad's mother never tried to replace my parents, but she gave me something they couldn't: undivided attention. Weekends at her house became my escape from the chaos of Amber at home. She'd barge into my room without knocking, borrow my things without asking, and throw tantrums when told no. Mom and Robert always defended her. "She's just a kid, Tiffany. Don't be so uptight." College had been my first real taste of freedom. Living in the dorms, I finally had my own space that no one invaded. Then, during my senior year, Grandma Eleanor passed away. I was devastated, but amidst my grief came an unexpected gift. She left me her house and her savings. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to help me start my life debt-free. Amber's reaction was swift and entitled. "This isn't fair. We should sell it and split the money." "She wasn't your grandma. She was my dad's mother," I'd replied. "She's not related to you at all. But we're still family. Mom, tell her." And true to form, Mom and Bert had gently suggested I consider sharing with my sister. I refused, and our already strained relationship fractured further. We barely spoke after that, except for obligatory family gatherings. I attended her wedding when she was 20, watching her marry Derek, a man 10 years her senior with family money and business connections. They'd moved to Arizona shortly after, and I'd been secretly relieved to have her even further removed from my life. Now, for years later, they were back, and soon they'd be in my house. I finished packing for my Chicago trip with a sense of dread. My job as a sales rep for a medical supply company kept me traveling regularly, something I normally enjoyed. Now, those business trips would serve a different purpose. Escapes from whatever chaos Amber would inevitably bring into my home. A week later, they arrived with 4 suitcases of designer clothes and accessories. Amber hugged me with artificial enthusiasm while Derek shook my hand firmly. I showed them the blue bedroom and helped them unpack. As I hung up Amber's 3rd designer coat, I couldn't help but think that selling just one of these items could probably cover a month's rent somewhere. At dinner that night, Derek cleared his throat. "I've got some promising leads. Meeting with an old college buddy tomorrow who works in investment banking." That's great, I said, genuinely hoping he'd find something quickly. Amber twirled her fork in her pasta. I'm not going to look for a job right away. I'm more of a homemaker, you know. I love taking care of the house and making things look nice. I raised my eyebrows. Well, that's perfect then. Since you enjoy homemaking so much, you can take care of the cleaning, cooking, and laundry while you're here. Her face fell instantly. Oh no, that's not what I meant. I like doing that in my own house. I'm a guest here, so you're a homemaker, but only when it's convenient. I couldn't help myself. Don't twist my words, she snapped. I just meant I'm still settling in. Derek intervened to change the subject and I let it go. But I already knew how this arrangement would play out. Some things never change. 2 weeks into living with Amber and Derek, I'd established a routine. Wake up early, leave for work before they were up, return home as late as possible. It wasn't ideal, but it helped me minimize my time around Amber, who had already fallen into her old habits. Despite her claims of being a homemaker, I'd come home each night to find dishes in the sink, clothes strewn across the living room, and no sign of dinner. Meanwhile, Amber would be sprawled on my sofa, scrolling through her phone or watching reality TV. Oh, you're back, she'd say without looking up. Can you make something to eat?
I'm starving.
The first few times I bit my tongue and made dinner for all of us. By the second week, my patience was wearing thin. Amber, what did you do today? I asked one night after finding the house in disarray again. She shrugged. I went to see Mom and Dad. Then I met up with Jessica from high school. Did you know she has 2 kids now? Her life is so boring. Did you have time to vacuum or put a load of laundry in? God, Tiffany, you're so uptight. I've been busy reconnecting with people. Besides, it's your house. Shouldn't you want to keep it nice? I had to walk away before I said something I regretted. Derek at least seemed to be making an effort. He left every morning in a suit, returning in the evenings with stories about interviews and networking events. I couldn't tell if he was actually looking for work or just avoiding the house, but at least he wasn't adding to my stress. When my boss called with news of a week-long business trip to Boston, I almost hugged him through the phone. 7 whole days away from this situation sounded like paradise. The night before my departure, I made my expectations clear to Amber. I'll be gone for a week, I said as I packed my suitcase. I don't want any parties at my house while I'm gone.
No overnight guests.
No mess waiting for me when I get back. Amber rolled her eyes dramatically. Yes, Mom. Anything else? Don't breathe your precious air? Don't sit on your sacred furniture? Derek has a second interview next week, so hopefully we'll be out of your hair soon anyway. I left early the next morning, trying to ignore the nagging feeling that something would go wrong in my absence. The Boston trip turned out to be a blessing. Not only did I get a break from the tension at home, but I closed a deal with a major hospital that would net me a substantial bonus. My boss was thrilled, promising me a healthy percentage on top of my regular commission. Great work, Tiffany, he said during our final call. Take an extra day if you need it. You've earned it. I declined the extra day, booking the earliest flight home instead. Despite my worries, part of me hoped that Amber and Derek had respected my wishes. Maybe I'd return to find the house in order and good news about Derek's job prospects. My flight landed late Sunday afternoon. The house looked normal from the outside as my cab pulled up, which I took as a good sign. I unlocked the front door, hauling my suitcase into the entryway, when I noticed something odd. There were 3 unfamiliar suitcases piled next to the stairs. Before I could process what this meant, I heard laughter coming from the living room. Not just Amber and Derek's voices, but others I vaguely recognized. I dropped my bags and marched towards the sound. The scene that greeted me stopped me in my tracks. Amber and Derek were sitting on my sofa, coffee mugs in hand, facing an older couple I recognized as Derek's parents. All 4 of them looked up in surprise as I appeared in the doorway. Tiffany. Amber's voice was unnaturally high-pitched. We weren't expecting you until later tonight. Clearly, I replied coldly, looking pointedly at the extra luggage in my hallway. What is going on here? Amber plastered on a smile. Oh, you remember Derek's parents? Roger and Linda. They decided to come visit us for a bit. Isn't that nice? I opened my mouth to object, to remind everyone that this was my house and I hadn't authorized any guests. When Amber jumped up, she grabbed my arm and practically dragged me into the kitchen. "Just give us a minute," she yelled over her shoulder before slamming the kitchen door behind us. "Have you lost your mind? I specifically said no guests." I know, she whispered, her eyes pleading. "But I need you to play along just for a little while. 2 weeks tops. 2 weeks. They want to leave tomorrow. Please, Tiffany." Her voice dropped even lower. "I told them this house is mine." Derek chimed in. "They've been treating me so much better since they think I own this nice place. After the business failed, they've been so cold to me, blaming me for distracting Derek. This is helping us save face." My jaw literally dropped. "Are you insane? I'm not going to play along with this craziness. Please," she clutched my hands. "I'll do all the chores, I swear. I'll cook, clean, do the laundry, everything I haven't been doing. Just pretend you're staying with me for a while because you're having trouble at work. Please, Tiffany, I've never asked you for anything." I looked at her desperate face and felt myself wavering. It was ridiculous, utterly insane, but somehow I found myself nodding. 2 weeks. Not a day more. And you better keep your promise about the chores. Relief flooded her features. Thank you. I swear you won't regret this." We returned to the living room, where I was introduced as Amber's sister who was staying with her temporarily due to some work troubles. Derek's parents nodded sympathetically, although Linda's eyes held a hint of judgment. Dinner that night was takeout from the restaurant across the street, although Amber claimed she'd made it all herself. Linda and Roger dominated the conversation, explaining how their son's business had failed due to unscrupulous partners and cutthroat competitors, never once suggesting that Derek might bear any responsibility. When the meal was over, Amber turned to me with a sweet smile that immediately set off alarm bells. "Tiffany, would you mind taking care of the dishes while I chat with Roger and Linda?" "Thanks, sis." And just like that, I knew I'd been duped. As I scraped plates in the sink, watching Amber laugh and charm her in-laws in my living room, I had the sinking feeling that her promises about chores would never materialize. My prediction about Amber's broken promises proved to be spot on. A week into this bizarre charade, I'd become the unofficial maid, cook, and punching bag for the entire household. Every morning I'd leave for work while everyone else slept in. Derek had abandoned his job search altogether, instead playing tour guide for his parents around the city. They spent their days shopping, sightseeing, and dining out, all while I worked to pay the bills for the house they believed belonged to my sister. When I returned each night, Amber would put on a show of cooking dinner for her in-laws, which meant ordering takeout, transferring it to my grandmother's serving dishes, and then presenting it as her own creation. She'd even mess up the kitchen to make it look like she'd been cooking all day. "Tiffany, could you help clear up the kitchen?" became her nightly refrain, always delivered with Linda and Roger present. "Since you're staying with us, it's only fair you contribute." I'd bite my tongue and do as I was asked, feeling Linda's critical gaze boring into my back. She'd started making little comments within earshot. "It's so generous of Amber to help her sister during a difficult time. Family should always come first." Or to Derek, "We raised you to be successful, but also to help those less fortunate. I'm glad you're being so supportive of both your wife and her struggling sister." One night, after a particularly grueling day at work, I cornered Amber in the pantry. "This has to stop," I said. "You promised you'd do the chores, but I'm doing everything while you play hostess in my house." She had the decency to look guilty. "I know, I'm sorry. It's just that Linda has such high expectations, and I don't want to disappoint her." "When are they leaving?" "It's been over a week. They need to leave." "I'll talk to Derek," she promised, but I could see from her expression that nothing would change. That night I received the monthly utility bills and I nearly fainted. The cost had more than doubled with 5 people in the house. Extra water usage, electricity running all day, the heat kept at tropical levels because Linda was sensitive to the cold. It all added up to hundreds of dollars more than my usual bills. I marched downstairs, furious, bills in hand, finding Amber alone in the kitchen. "Look at this." I thrust the papers at her. "The utilities have doubled. You need to pay at least half." Amber scanned the bills, her eyes wide. "I can't pay this. We don't have any money right now." "That's not my problem." They're living here using water and electricity all day while I'm at work. I'm not covering this alone. Don't be like that, Amber whined. We're family. Can't you just help us out this one time? My patience finally snapped.
No.
I'm sick of this whole situation. If you can't contribute financially, then you should at least be doing what you promised and taking care of the house. But you haven't been doing that either. I'm sick of being taken advantage of. I hadn't realized how loudly I'd been speaking until I heard the front door open. Derek and his parents were back from their latest outing, catching the tail end of our argument. What's going on here? Demanded Bert, his brow furrowed. Amber's expression instantly transformed from petulant to victimized. Tiffany doesn't want to pay her share of the bills, she said in a small, hurt voice. I stared at her in disbelief. After everything, she was still throwing me under the bus. Linda stepped forward, her face stern. Young lady, I don't understand your attitude. Your sister has generously opened her home to you during your difficulties, and this is how you repay her? By refusing to contribute. That's not what I began, but Roger cut me off. Frankly, we've noticed your lack of gratitude since we arrived. Amber cooks and maintains this lovely home, while you simply come and go as you please, taking advantage of her kindness. My head was spinning. The sheer absurdity of being lectured about taking advantage of Amber in my own house was too much. Without another word, I grabbed the bills and retreated to my bedroom, slamming the door shut and locking it. I could hear them downstairs, their muffled voices rising and falling. I imagined Amber playing the victim, her in-laws consoling her, all at my expense. The unfairness of it burned in my chest. When hunger finally forced me back downstairs for dinner, the atmosphere was glacial. Linda and Roger barely acknowledged my presence, while Amber avoided eye contact. Only Derek seemed uncomfortable with the tension, fiddling with his napkin and attempting small talk that quickly died. Then Linda cleared her throat. Amber dear, my father always taught me that honesty and respect are the foundations of any home. Of course, Mom, Amber replied. Which is why we feel we need to speak up. Linda shot a pointed look in my direction. We don't think it's working out having your sister here. She's clearly taking advantage of your hospitality. Frankly, her attitude is affecting the peace of your beautiful home. I nearly choked on my water. Roger nodded in agreement. Not Chris, Derek. Derek mumbled something unintelligible, studying his plate intently. Linda continued. We think it would be best if Tiffany found other living arrangements soon. All eyes turned to Amber, waiting for her response. I watched her curiously, wondering if she'd finally tell the truth about who really owned this house. She hesitated, her eyes flitting between her in-laws and me. I could see the internal struggle playing out on her face. Then with a deep breath she turned to me. Tiffany, she said, her voice unnaturally firm, I think it would be best if you packed your things. I need you to move out in 2 weeks. The silence that followed was deafening. Roger and Linda beamed their approval, while Derek stared at his wife in shock. Amber's eyes met mine, silently pleading with me to play along one more time. But something in me had finally snapped. I'd reached my breaking point. Slowly I stood up, placed my napkin on the table, and looked at the people who had invaded my life and my home. No, I said quietly. I don't think I will. The room went still after my refusal. Linda's mouth gaped open in shock, while Roger's face reddened with indignation. Excuse me. Linda finally sputtered. This isn't your decision, young lady. I leaned forward, placing my palms flat on the dining room table. My grandmother's table. In my house. Actually, it is. Everyone in this room has exactly 2 days to pack their things and leave. And I mean everyone. Amber's face drained of all color. Tiffany, please, can we talk about this privately? No more private talks, Amber. I'm done with the lies and manipulation. I turned to Linda and Roger. There's something you should know. I let Amber and Derek stay here temporarily because they needed help. But this is my house. I own it. I pay the bills. Linda's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Amber, is this true? Amber looked like she was going to be sick. Can I explain? You told us this was your house. Roger's voice had become dangerously quiet. You showed us around like you owned the place. Derek finally spoke. Dad, we were just trying to save face after the business failed. We didn't want you to know how bad things had gotten. The next few minutes were chaotic. Linda and Roger yelled at Derek and Amber. Amber cried and tried to defend herself. Derek sat with his head in his hands, looking defeated. I stood by, watching as the fallout from my sister's lies crumbled around her. Finally, I'd had enough. Silence. I slammed my hand down on the table so hard the dishes rattled. I don't care about your family drama. I want all of you out of my house. Now. Linda stood up with as much dignity as she could muster. We'll leave immediately. We wouldn't stay another minute in a house built on lies. She glared at her son and daughter-in-law. And you too, don't expect to come running to us after this humiliation. Within an hour, Linda and Roger had packed their bags and called a cab. They left without saying goodbye to anyone. The door slammed shut behind them with finality. As soon as they were gone, Amber exploded. How could you do this to me? You've ruined everything. They'll never forgive us now. You lied to them, Amber. You lied to me. You've been taking advantage of me since the day you moved in. I was desperate. Their approval means everything to Derek's future. Now we have nothing. That's not my problem, I said calmly. You have 2 days to find somewhere else to live. Amber's face contorted with rage. You've always been jealous of me. Always. Just because Grandma left you this house. She left me this house because she was my grandmother, not yours. And because I was the only one who spent time with her, who cared about her. That's not true. It is true. Just like it's true that you haven't changed a bit since we were kids. You still think the world revolves around you, that rules don't apply to you, that everyone should bend over backwards to please you. Well, I'm done pleasing you, Amber. Get out of my house. I turned and walked upstairs, locking myself in my bedroom to the sound of Amber's continued ranting. I was shaking with adrenaline, but I also felt strangely peaceful. For the first time in my life, I'd stood up to my sister without backing down. Early the next morning my phone rang. It was my mother. Tiffany, what is going on? Amber called me last night hysterical, saying you'd kicked her and Derek out. They have nowhere to go. They can stay with me and Robert. Your house isn't that small. That's not the point. Family helps family, you know that. I laughed bitterly. Does that rule apply to Amber too? Because she hasn't done a thing to help me since she moved in. Instead, she lied to her in-laws, claiming my house was hers, and then tried to kick me out when they suggested it. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Mom. For once, listen to me instead of automatically taking Amber's side. She and Derek moved in, promised it would be temporary, then invited her parents without asking me, left all the chores to me while pretending to her in-laws that she was the lady of the house. When I asked them to contribute to the utility bills, which had doubled, she refused and then blamed me in front of everyone. My mother was silent for a moment. Well, I'm sure she didn't mean. I don't care what she meant. I've been more than generous, and she's taken advantage at every turn. They need to leave today. Tiffany, please reconsider.
No.
And honestly, Mom, I don't want to hear from you or Bert either if you're just going to defend her like always. I'm tired of being the responsible one who never gets any consideration. I hung up before she could respond. It felt surprisingly good to finally stand my ground. By that evening, Amber and Derek had packed their belongings. They didn't say goodbye. In the following weeks, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Amber and her in-laws were no longer speaking. Apparently, they told her she wasn't welcome at their house after the deception. My mother called several times, leaving voicemails that gradually evolved from demanding I apologize to awkwardly suggesting a family dinner to clear the air. I deleted them all. 3 months after the blow-up, my house was peaceful again. The utility bills were back to normal. My work trips became enjoyable instead of necessary escapes. I redecorated the blue bedroom, turning it into a home office where I could work remotely when I wasn't traveling. I'm sitting now on my grandmother's porch swing, watching the sunset over the neighborhood she loved. This house isn't just a building. It's my sanctuary, my inheritance, my home. And finally, it's mine alone again.